In a conservative Pakistani village, where honor dictates every aspect of life, one woman crossed an unthinkable line. A secret affair, hidden within the walls of her own home, led to a crime so shocking that it shattered an entire family. The victim? Not a stranger, but the man who once held absolute authority over her. Her own father-in-law. But what really happened behind closed doors? Was this a crime of passion or the desperate act of a woman with no way out? Stay with us as we uncover the dark secrets behind this case. And if you love gripping true crime stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Saira was just 19 when she married into a respected household, bound by tradition and expectations. Her husband, Adil, was distant, more focused on work than his young wife. But within the same home lived another man, Zafar, her father-in-law, a figure of authority, charm, and influence. What started as fleeting conversations turned into something far more dangerous, a connection that should have never existed, a secret they both knew could destroy everything. Then, one night, it all fell apart. A confrontation, a betrayal, and a final act of violence that left Zafar dead on the floor. But was Saira a cold-blooded murderer, or was she a woman trapped in a situation she could no longer control? Welcome to True Crime Family Story, where we dive deep into chilling cases, unsolved crimes, and the dark side of human experience. Join us as we uncover hidden truths and explore the twisted corners of the criminal world. Thanks to our loyal viewers and subscribers for your support. We're grateful for your likes, comments, and subscriptions, which help us share these shocking stories and unravel mysteries that impact our lives. Subscribe and join our growing community to stay updated on gripping cases. Let's get started. Deep in the heart of Pakistan, villages operate under strict traditions where family honor is everything. Generations live under one roof, bound by customs that dictate how men and women should behave. In these households, the father-in-law is often the patriarch, the ultimate authority over his children and their spouses. Women, on the other hand, are expected to be obedient, loyal, and devoted to their husbands. For Saira, this wasn't just a set of expectations, it was her reality. She had no voice in choosing her husband. Her marriage was arranged, as is common in many families, with little concern for love or compatibility. Her role was clear: to be a dutiful wife, maintain the household, and uphold the family's reputation at all costs. Inside the home, respect wasn't just expected, it was demanded. Zafar, the father-in-law, held authority over every decision. From financial matters to family disputes, his word was final. Even his son, Adil, deferred to him, reinforcing the hierarchy that governed their daily lives. For Saira, this meant living under constant scrutiny. Every action, every word, every glance was judged. While her husband was indifferent, Zafar was always present, watching, controlling, and slowly breaking the unspoken boundaries between them. In a society where a woman's honor is tied to her family's reputation, any sign of disobedience could have devastating consequences. But what happens when the one enforcing those rules is the very person crossing the line? In Saira's world, speaking out was not an option. Women were expected to endure their struggles quietly, sacrificing personal happiness for the sake of family honor. Divorce was rarely considered, and seeking help from outsiders could bring shame upon an entire household. Even when men crossed boundaries, it was the women who bore the blame. A whispered rumor could ruin reputations. A single accusation could turn a woman into an outcast. The unspoken rule was clear: suffer in silence or risk losing everything. But Saira's story wouldn't end in silence. Her choices, whether made out of fear, passion, or desperation, would shatter the very foundations of her home. and soon the price of secrecy would be paid in blood. At first, it was nothing more than casual conversation. A few words exchanged while setting the dinner table. A lingering glance in the hallway. Zafar had always been a commanding presence in the household, but now he was something else. Attentive, engaging, and dangerously persuasive. Saira had spent years feeling unseen, but Zafar noticed everything. He asked about her day, praised her cooking, and listened when no one else did. It was a stark contrast to Adil's cold indifference, and for the first time in years, Saira felt valued. What started as small moments of kindness soon became something far more intimate. A connection she knew was wrong. A secret that, if exposed, would destroy everything. But stopping was easier said than done. What began as fleeting conversation soon turned into stolen moments. A brush of the hand while passing dishes. A quiet conversation late at night when the rest of the household slept. Each interaction blurred the line between comfort and something far more dangerous. Zafar played his role well. He was experienced, confident, and knew exactly how to manipulate the situation. He spoke to Saira in ways her husband never did, filling the void Adil had left in their marriage. Saira knew the risk. A secret like this could never be forgiven. If anyone in the household suspected, her fate would be sealed. And yet, despite the danger, she couldn't pull away. The weight of tradition, duty, and fear of exposure only made the affair more intoxicating. At first, Saira believed she had found something real, an escape from her loveless marriage, a connection she had long craved. But as the affair deepened, so did Zafar's control. What once felt like affection soon became possession. He dictated when they could meet, where they could speak, and how she should act around others. His charm had drawn her in, but now his presence felt suffocating. The guilt was unbearable, yet the fear of stopping was even worse. If Zafar turned against her, he could ruin her completely. In their society, a woman's word meant little against a man's. If anyone discovered the truth, she would be the one blamed, while Zafar would remain untouchable. And then the first warning signs appeared. Saira and Zafar had been careful, but secrets have a way of slipping through the cracks. Small things, an unguarded glance, a moment of hesitation, were enough to raise suspicion. Amina, Saira's mother-in-law, had started watching more closely. The way Zafar lingered when Saira was in the room, the hushed tones between them, she noticed it all. Adil, too consumed with work, remained oblivious. But suspicion alone wasn't enough to accuse. Not yet. For Saira, every moment felt like walking a tightrope. The walls of her home, once a place of confinement, now became a prison of her own making. If anyone uncovered the truth, there would be no forgiveness, no second chances. And deep down, she knew, secrets like these never stayed buried for long. Saira had convinced herself that she was in control, that as long as she was careful, the affair would remain a secret. But Zafar saw things differently. What had started as whispered conversations and stolen moments had now turned into something far more dangerous. He became possessive, demanding more of her time, pushing the limits of their secrecy. If she hesitated, his tone would shift, reminding her of the power he held. He wasn't just her lover, he was the head of the household, the man who controlled her fate. The weight of their deception grew heavier each day. Saira no longer felt excitement, only fear. She had crossed a line she could never undo, and soon that fear would turn into something far worse. Late one night, as the house lay in silence, Adil stirred from his sleep. A muffled voice carried through the stillness, soft, urgent, unfamiliar. His instincts sharpened. It wasn't the sound of a restless sleeper or a routine midnight movement. Someone was talking. He rose cautiously, stepping into the dimly lit hallway. The voices came from the other side of the courtyard. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Intimate, tense. Then a name slipped through the air. Saira. A chill ran through him. His wife's name, spoken in the quiet of the night, but not by him. Adil didn't confront her, not yet, but the seed of suspicion had been planted, and once planted, it only grew. Saira barely slept anymore. The walls of the house felt like they were closing in, suffocating her under the weight of her choices. Every glance from Amina felt like an accusation. Every moment alone with Zafar felt more like a trap than a refuge. She had told herself it was love, something pure in a life that had felt so empty. But love wasn't supposed to feel like this. Love wasn't supposed to come with fear, secrecy, or the gnawing sense that everything could collapse in an instant. She wanted to end it, to step away before it was too late. But Zafar had other plans, and as she pulled away, his grip on her only tightened. Amina had spent decades running this household. She knew every rhythm, every unspoken rule, and lately something felt off. Saira had grown distant, her eyes shadowed with something unspoken. Zafar, once composed and authoritative, seemed unusually preoccupied. The smallest details gnawed at Amina. The way Saira flinched when Zafar entered a room, the awkward pauses in conversation, the tension that lingered in the air like an unsaid word. She watched, silently gathering pieces of a puzzle she didn't want to complete. Women in this family were taught to be silent, to ignore what shouldn't be questioned. But Amina had seen enough in her lifetime to know. Secrets, no matter how carefully hidden, always found their way to the surface. It was an ordinary afternoon when Amina found it. Tucked beneath a folded shawl in the wooden chest, the delicate paper felt foreign in her hands. Amina's fingers trembled as she unfolded it, her eyes scanning the rushed, urgent handwriting. It wasn't just words, it was a confession. Lines filled with stolen promises, desperate longing, and a name that sent a cold wave through her. Zafar. The walls of her world shifted. The man she had built a life around, the head of their household, was hiding something monstrous. And Saira, the girl she had accepted as a daughter, had betrayed them all. Amina's breath came in sharp gasps. She clutched the letter in her fists. This couldn't stay buried. Not anymore. Amina stormed into the main room, her heart pounding against her ribs. Saira was arranging tea when she saw the letter clutched in Amina's hands. Her face drained of color. "What is this?" Amina's voice shook with restrained fury as she held up the crumpled paper. Saira's lips parted, but no words came. Her silence was an admission. Footsteps echoed behind them. Zafar. He took one look at the scene and without hesitation stepped forward. "What nonsense is this?" His voice was steady, but his eyes flickered with something darker. Calculation. Amina turned on him. "Don't lie to me, Zafar." But he didn't flinch. Instead, he exhaled and shook his head, his expression morphing into disappointment. "You really think she's innocent?" Saira's stomach twisted. She knew what was coming next. Zafar sighed, shaking his head as if carrying a great burden. "Amina, you've always trusted me. Do you really believe I would betray this family?" His voice was calm, controlled, practiced. Amina's grip tightened around the letter. "Then explain this." Zafar exhaled heavily. "Saira, she's troubled." His gaze shifted toward her, filled with feigned concern. "She has been unhappy in this home. I tried to guide her, but she became obsessed, confused." Saira's pulse pounded in her ears. "That's a lie." she burst out, her voice cracking. Zafar didn't even look at her. Instead, he placed a steady hand on Amina's shoulder. "She wrote those letters, Amina. She pursued me." Amina's expression wavered. Doubt flickered in her eyes. And in that moment, Saira felt the walls closing in. Saira's breath came in short gasps. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. She had expected anger, even disgust. But not this. Not Zafar twisting the truth so effortlessly, turning her into the villain. Amina took a step back, uncertainty clouding her face. "Is this true?" she whispered. Saira's hands clenched into fists. "You know me," she said, her voice shaking. "You know what kind of man he is." But Zafar was relentless. He moved closer, lowering his voice just enough for only her to hear. "You should have kept quiet," he murmured. "Now, you'll have no one left." Something inside Saira snapped. Fear melted into rage. She wouldn't let him control the story. Not anymore. The house was silent, but Saira's mind was screaming. Zafar's words echoed in her ears, his manipulation, his arrogance. She paced inside her room, her nails digging into her palms. He had taken everything, her dignity, her truth, her voice, and now he would walk away untouchable. A creak in the hallway, heavy footsteps. Zafar. He entered without hesitation, closing the door behind him. "You've embarrassed yourself enough," he said, his tone low, almost amused. "I'll fix this. You'll say nothing more." Saira's body trembled, not with fear, but fury. Her fingers curled around the cold, heavy object within reach. She barely registered the movement as she turned. Zafar's smirk faded as she raised her arm, a sharp gasp, then silence. The room felt frozen in time. Zafar staggered back, his eyes wide with shock. His hands clutched his chest where Saira had struck him, his breath coming in shallow gasps. "You stupid girl," he rasped, his legs buckling. The object, Saira barely registered what it was anymore, slipped from her grasp, clattering onto the floor. Zafar collapsed. The weight of his body hitting the ground sent tremors through the room. Saira's own breath was ragged, her hands trembling. The rage that had consumed her just seconds ago drained away, replaced by something colder. Regret? Number. Not yet. The door creaked open. Amina stood there, eyes darting between Saira and the lifeless body on the floor. Her scream shattered the silence. Amina's scream cut through the night like a siren, sending shockwaves through the house. Within moments, hurried footsteps echoed in the hall. Adil was the first to enter. His eyes darted from his father's lifeless body to Saira, still frozen in place. His face twisted in disbelief. "What have you done?" Saira couldn't answer. She barely heard the wails of Amina as she collapsed beside Zafar, shaking his unresponsive body. The rest of the household flooded in, relatives, servants, neighbors roused from sleep. Gasps, whispers, accusations filled the air. "Saira killed him!" someone cried. The weight of their stares pressed down on her, suffocating. Then a voice cut through the chaos, sharp, authoritative. "Call the police." And just like that, it was over. The police arrived within minutes, their presence turning the household into a crime scene. Officers pushed through the stunned crowd, their sharp voices cutting through the chaos. Saira didn't resist as rough hands grabbed her wrists, yanking them behind her back. The cold bite of metal cuffs snapped her back to reality. "Do you understand what you've done?" Adil's voice was barely a whisper, but the disgust in his eyes was deafening. Amina sobbed uncontrollably, cradling Zafar's head in her lap. "You've destroyed us," she wailed. Neighbors murmured in hushed tones, their judgment swift and unforgiving. As Saira was led away, the weight of what she had done settled over her. Was this justice, or had she just sealed her own fate? By morning, the news had spread beyond the household, rippling through the village like wildfire. Gossip swirled in tea stalls, hushed conversations filled narrow alleyways, and judgment hung heavy in the air. A woman killed her father-in-law. Unthinkable. She was always quiet. Who knew she had such darkness in her? Maybe there's more to the story. But few were willing to entertain the possibility of innocence. In a society where family honor was paramount, Saira's crime was already decided in the court of public opinion. Back at the house, Adil burned the love letters, erasing the evidence of the scandal. But no fire could erase the shame. And for Saira, there was no turning back. Saira sat in the back of the police van, her wrists still bound. The air inside was thick with silence, but outside, the world was roaring. By the time they reached the station, reporters had already gathered. Flashing cameras, shouted questions, the chaos of a media frenzy. Her crime had become the village's most scandalous story overnight. Pakistani woman murders father-in-law in cold blood, one headline screamed. A forbidden affair ends in death. Was it love or lust? Another speculated. Saira kept her head down as officers pulled her through the crowd. She wasn't just a woman accused of murder. She was a disgrace, a cautionary tale, a stain on her family's honor. And everyone wanted to watch her fall. The village had already made up its mind. Inside homes, markets, and mosques, the debate raged on. Some saw Saira as a wicked woman who had brought shame upon herself. Others whispered that Zafar, despite his status, wasn't as honorable as he appeared. But those voices were drowned out by outrage. How could she betray her husband like this? An elder scoffed. She killed the man who raised her. Another spat. Even those who pitied her dared not say so publicly. To defend Saira meant questioning the foundation of their society, something few were willing to do. At home, Adil and Amina reached a decision. By the time Saira stood in court, she would stand alone. The family had disowned her. In the end, no one truly won. Zafar was dead. Saira faced life behind bars, and the family, once held together by tradition and control, had been shattered. But was this inevitable? Perhaps Saira was a victim of an oppressive system, trapped in a loveless marriage, manipulated by a man twice her age, and discarded when she no longer served a purpose. Or maybe she was the villain, someone who allowed desire to cloud her judgment, making choices that led to betrayal and bloodshed. Either way, one truth remains. When love turns to secrecy and power is abused, destruction follows. But what do you think? Was Saira pushed to the edge, or was this an unforgivable crime? This case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. It's easy to judge from a distance, but step into Saira's world for a moment. Trapped in a life she didn't choose, torn between fear and forbidden love, and ultimately left with no way out. Was she a woman pushed beyond her breaking point? Or did she willingly destroy everything for a love she knew could never last? Now, we turn to you. What do you think? Was this a tragic act of survival or an unforgivable betrayal? Let us know in the comments. And if you love true crime stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more cases that reveal the darkest depths of human nature.